The knife is a Spyderco Military in 52-100 carbon fiber handle scales. The build on this is similar to the KnifeWorks exclusive in CTS 204P. It's open pillar construction in large lanyard tube, a stepped pin for the stop pin. The hardware is larger. The carbon fiber on this is peel ply, and it's solid. It's solid pieces of carbon fiber. No laminate cover over G10. It feels very good. The texture is very good in hand. It was a good choice and it was done well. Again, I like the changes to the build. The enlarged lanyard tube was a good idea. I like seeing the hardware a little bit bigger. The steel on this is 52-100. 52-100 is a high carbon steel. It's an interesting choice. It's not a high carbide steel in any sense. The carbon content is around 0.98 to 1.1. It's got a little bit of chromium, a little bit of manganese, but it's a fairly basic steel in comparison to some of the high carbide steels. It's not going to have the edge retention cutting soft abrasive material that even steels like S30V would have, but 52-100 can easily be a high toughness steel. It's formerly a ball bearing steel. It's used by NASA, and I think commonly in the industry as far as ball bearings goes. I think NASA's recently or since switched off to using something else. 52-100 became more and more common in knives, and so there was a lot of work being done. At least I've read there was a lot of work being done tweaking the heat treat of it, getting better edge retention, keeping the higher toughness. So I thought it was an interesting choice. Something worth noting about 52-100, aside from the fact that it's not going to have the highest edge retention in the world when cutting soft abrasive materials like cardboard or rope, is that it's not very resistant to corrosion. I was thinking it would be similar to 1095, and that may end up being the case. Now, this knife, I've had it for a day, and when I got it, I opened it up, took it out of the box, opened it and closed it a few times, looked at it, looked at the grind that was on it, so I knew I was going to sharpen it. I thought I might need to reprofile it. I was checking the angle. It came at 30 inclusive. It's not the cleanest grind in the world, but it's not the sloppiest either. It's 30 inclusive with a slight micro bevel that was put on from the factory. That's fine. I'll take the micro bevel out. I'm going to leave it at 30 inclusive. I'm glad that it's at 30 inclusive. It means I don't need to reprofile it. I mean, that's where I was going to put it anyway. But after just looking at it for a minute, I closed the knife, set it down, walked away from it for 24 hours. And when I came back to it, I've already got corrosion on the blade. I've already got what looks like the start of patina. Now, that's fine for me. I don't care. I knew that this blade wasn't going to be corrosion resistant going into the purchase, so I don't have a problem with that. I made a decision before buying the knife. I was going to let it take its course and be what it's going to be. I'm not going to bother trying to keep this oiled. I'm not going to bother trying to fight it. I think it'll be interesting to let it patina and let it be what it's going to be, and go that route with it. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not some people, as soon as they see any specks of corrosion, they freak out. Like I said, I'm not worried about it, but I am surprised that just 24 hours later, I can see the spots that I had touched the blade and hadn't wiped it off, hadn't oiled it. So, I've heard that 52-100 will sit there and rust in front of you while you look at it. I thought that was exaggerated, but this is a very fast reaction to the steel, so it should be interesting. And yeah, like I said, I'm looking forward to letting it do what it's going to do. I think that'll be interesting. It's pretty difficult to get that with something like an S30V model, but this steel kind of opens you up to it. So for the sharpening of this knife, I decided to start with the DMT diafold sharpeners and make the technique that I was using, a stone in hand technique. It's an aggressive way to go about the sharpening, but it gets through it quick, and it's something that I've been playing with lately, more and more dealing with higher polishes, just because it's something different. With this, I wanted to do that. I thought that a higher polish, mirror polish, would be nice. Not only because if the blade patinas, it'll sit in contrast to that, so it'll make it stand out more. I thought that was nice, but also corrosion. If I've got a heavy scratch pattern cut into this that I didn't take out in the edge bevel near the apex, if moisture's getting in there and this steel is corroding as fast as it seemed to that first day, that could be an issue. I mean, that could be an issue for the integrity of the edge bevel and the apex. So to counter that, I've got a high polish on it, and with more of the scratch pattern removed, you're less likely to get moisture down in the steel. So it works both ways, and it's something different. It's something different for me with the military. I mean, with the 204P military, I left it very, very aggressive. This one I brought up to a very fine edge. So I started with the DMT sharpeners. I started with the coarse, moved to the fine, made my way to extra fine, and then extra, extra fine. After that, I moved on to the Spyderco double stuff. I started with medium. I worked my way through medium, and then moved on to the fine. And something I noticed, if I can backtrack a minute, with the DMT sharpeners, the finish that they left was different on this steel than something like ZDP or S30V. I mean, it was a noticeable difference, and you would think, okay, it's not as much carbide, and you know, it's really a different steel, but still, it was a surprising difference that I noticed going through the stones. Same thing with the ceramics from Spyderco. Like I said, medium and then fine, and I noticed a difference in the finish that was left. Now, after the fine with the double stuff, I moved on to the ultra fine Spyderco rod. The movements I was making was faster, but still I wanted to go to ultra fine and work that way. And the ultra fine rod that I was using was new. I was online and I noticed that it was on there for a really, really low price, so I went ahead and ordered one. It showed up today, and I decided to go ahead and use. I mean, the one that I've been using is fine. It's not worn down yet, but I went ahead and used this one just because it was new and it was there. After the ultrafine rod, I moved on to strops. I started with a 5+ micron oil-based compound, worked my way through that, burr removal, setting up the edge for the rest of the strops. Then I moved on to a 5 micron and made my way down through a progression of strops. Everything after the first one was an oil-based diamond compound, except for the last three. The last three was a 1/4 micron, 0.05 micron, and 0.025 micron, and those three were all diamond sprays. All the stropping was done on wood. The edge came up exactly how I wanted it to. It was almost so sharp that it wouldn't whittle a hair, but it would cut hairs both ways, and I found myself whittling off very small pieces of hair. Nice little curls. So I'm very pleased with the edge, and I'm very pleased with the knife. 52-100 is an interesting choice, and I think it'll be, you know, I'll enjoy seeing the life of this knife and what happens with the steel, with the aesthetics of it and everything. And it's good exposure to 52-100. I've been looking forward to this. Been looking forward to this model coming out, so I'm glad that it's here.